There are those, myself included, who would call Mamoru Hosoda the next Miyazaki. Bringing us the likes of Summer Wars, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, and of course, Wolf Children, Hosoda's films often strike the same imaginative and thoughtful, yet accessible and childlike chord that characterizes Miyazaki's best. And so, today we take a look at Hosoda's most recent work, The Boy and the Beast, having just recently hit American theaters. Does it live up to the lofty standards Hosoda has set, or is it a rare stumble for the promising director? I hope for the former. The loss of a parent is always difficult, and especially so for young Ren after the untimely death of his mother. Having had no significant contact with his father for years on end, Ren is left feeling completely and utterly alone. Wallowing in his depression, Ren wanders out into the city and is approached by two hooded beast-like figures, one of whom jokingly asks the boy to become his apprentice before traipsing off with his companion. Although momentarily stunned, Ren attempts to follow the man, eventually finding himself at the entrance to a narrow and innocuous alleyway. Of course, this is anything but a normal alleyway and is in actuality a doorway to the world of the beasts, anthropomorphic animals that would be right at home in any number of Disney flicks. Working his way through this strange new world, fortune smiles upon Ren as he comes across the very person he has sought, revealed to be Kumatetsu, a gruff, violent, and boisterous red-furred bear. The two initially feel little but animosity for each other, but soon enough Kumatetsu takes Ren, now named Kyuta, under his wing to train in the ways of strength and combat, as the bear's first disciple since the beginning of his long life. The Girl Who Leapt Through Time and Summer Wars were produced by Madhouse, and unsurprisingly looked pretty damn good as a result. Afterwards, Madhouse continued to work with Hosoda on Wolf Children, but the animation was gradually handed over to Hosoda's own personal studio, Studio Chizu, who at this point are the sole production company behind The Boy and the Beast. But regardless of that studio shuffling behind the scenes, Hosoda always has a knack for imbuing his worlds with a degree of life and fluidity, and The Boy and the Beast is no exception. Just looking at this film gives you a warm feeling inside, with the usual soft but flowing movements and wide array of facial expressions, as well as interesting uses of light and particles on the rare occasion. On top of that, the environments and character designs themselves were quite nice, detailed and unique, but not crowded or overstuffed. The beasts especially had a simplistic memorability to them. Let's look at Kumatetsu, for example. He's pretty straightforward, an upright bear holding a sword, but the color of it all just meshes well with itself. That orange with that red with that brownish fur. All around a good-looking bear, and the other beasts fare more or less the same. The pig, the monkey, the other pig, and the rabbit. On that note, to go on a brief tangent, I really liked that rabbit. Speaking frankly, none of the characters in this film are all too deep, so you have to derive enjoyment from their surface personalities, and with the rabbit, this was not a hard thing to do. He was one of those wise but quirky characters, you could almost say Yoda-ish, popping up every so often to say a sage word or two, and with a sense of teasing playfulness, but not to the point of being a mischievous pest. But anyways, going back to the character design, the human characters too looked nice and clean, if not very distinguishable, but that's pretty much Hosoda's style. His humans rarely look extravagant or over the top, they just look like people, which is something I can respect when it's the opposite of many other modern anime. The only real problem with the visuals at all is something that comes up in any anime production these days, of course being CGI. However, even in this regard, The Boy and the Beast fares rather well. Its most plentiful use of 3D models are in their standard functions, either as vehicles or people in large crowds. It's always unfortunate to be taken out of the experience by noticing, hey wait, those guys in the back are CGI. But The Boy and the Beast is certainly nowhere near the worst I've seen, as I would hope considering it has a film budget. In other words, this complaint is a nitpick at best. Okay. The animation is the one thing that I think everyone would agree is good about this movie. But now that that's over and done with, we have to hit the more mixed elements. Let's start by taking a look at the story itself. It has heart, but heart is not always enough. It goes for emotional impact, as one would expect from Hosoda, and does succeed in being heartwarming to a degree, but lacks a certain depth that prevents it from hitting you right where you live. The best way to put it is that, yes, there were a lot of good pieces, solid themes, and ideas. Sometimes it bears similarities to Wolf Children, bringing up the difficulty of choosing between the life of a beast and the life of a human. Naturally not nearly as fleshed out, because while Wolf Children spends its entire movie on that topic, The Boy and the Beast has many other things to talk about, but the concept is still present and flipped about on the occasion. The Boy and the Beast toys with other thoughts too, things like the inherent darkness in people, the struggle of living in solitude, and the meaning of being a good father. And these are all decent, respectable messages to stake your movie on, but there's also a lot of them, and while it wasn't exactly overwhelming, I felt like there was too much it tried to tackle. And yes, we're transitioning, but I'm just going to keep talking because this all snowballs into the one big point I'm trying to make. The Boy and the Beast has ideas. You get the sense that it really does think it has something to say, but it's hard to discern exactly what that is under the mess of its presentation. It feels notably less focused than Hosoda's 3 prior films, and the story pieces themselves integrate far less naturally than you'd hope. You've got Kyuta's tutelage and growth under Kumatetsu, you've got his pseudo-romance and friendship with a human girl, Kaede, you've got his strained relationship with his actual biological father, you've got questions of identity, questions of loneliness, questions of strength, questions of love, questions of family. It's all just too much. It can't devote enough time to any one particular concept it's trying to articulate, and this manifests in characters or plot events that just don't feel well enough developed for the impact they're trying to earn. A big example being the connection between Kyuta and Kumatetsu, which the movie tries to sell you on as being this big, life and personality-altering thing for both of them, but I had a hard time buying it, because their interactions seem to consist solely of hitting and yelling, with only the tiniest hints of actual endearment, and certainly not to the supposedly obvious extent all the other characters seem to think it is. It's like the movie outright tells us, look how much Kumatetsu has grown, and even though you don't really see it in his actions, you're expected to roll with it because otherwise the plot won't work. Naturally, other characters get shafted too. Kyuta's human love interest, Kaede, has no unique personality of her own besides being the love interest. There's not a thing about her that is unique. She's nice, she's friendly, she's kind. Those all mean the same damn thing. Just like Kumatetsu's supposed growth, the only hint of her being an actual person is never actually shown, but just told. There are 2 or 3 times when she tells Kyuta about how she has a darkness inside her. I wanted to shout, then show that, please. You never see her being hostile or angry or even remotely disagreeable. So this darkness comes off as something the movie's trying to convince you of without establishing or displaying anything to back it up. The last character I'll call out specifically is Ichiro Hiko. I haven't mentioned him at all yet and won't say much period because spoilers, but his own quote-unquote growth happens pretty much on a dime and was eyebrow-raising at best. So, to reiterate the obvious, yes, The Boy and the Beast has issues with telling instead of showing. Telling you how people feel, but rarely, if ever, showing it. This is epitomized in the very first scene, which is a few minutes of pure, disembodied exposition, explaining the world and its characters point blank with no natural context. Can you think of a lazier way to establish a setting? Summer Wars did something similar, and I didn't care for it there either, but the difference here is that this exposition scene could have and should have been cut entirely. Literally, everything it establishes about the premise and the cast can be very easily inferred by just paying basic attention. Personally, I would cut it for another reason too, because in my opinion, one of its explanations directly contradicts a certain plot point down the line, but that's more debatable. The undebatable thing though is that the opening scene adds nothing of note, and basically just serves to tell us, yep, this is what you're getting yourselves into. I know how it sounds. It sounds like I just slammed The Boy and the Beast. I have almost nothing but problems and complaints. But that's not exactly true. Rather, it's a symptom of the movie's flaws being very easy to indicate because they are fairly pronounced, while the strengths are more subtle, the kind of things that Hosoda has repeatedly excelled at, like a simple conversation bringing a smile to your face, or the splendor tranquility of the world leaving you with that nice, fuzzy feeling. And chances are, if you're an anime fan, you already know those strengths. If you've ever seen a Hosoda or even a Ghibli movie, you know those strengths. So it felt more imperative to touch on the unique blunders rather than the expected successes. All in all, The Boy and the Beast is itself a strange beast. Beautiful to look at, and at first glance, passable in most other respects, but upon further examination, things start to fall apart. It doesn't collapse in on itself, it still has a functional story with some entertaining characters, and it's easy enough to laugh along with during the lighter scenes, but the construction just isn't as neat and sturdy as it tries to pretend. So after taking everything into account, as well as my own subjective enjoyment on a scale from F to S, The Boy and the Beast was flawed, absolutely, but those flaws don't compound on each other to create a terrible movie, they just prevent it from being the clearly great one that Hosoda envisioned. So, a B. But not a strong, almost A B, more like a Persona Q B, if any of you have even seen that review. That is to say, not a thoroughly bad piece, but a disappointing one, and in my opinion, easily Hosoda's worst, but still worth checking out eventually if you're a fan, as long as you keep your expectations in check. Or maybe, showings are over. What? There's no more theatrical showings. If they haven't seen it already, they can't. Are you sure? Pretty sure. Or maybe you think I'm completely wrong, and this was a triumph, Hosoda's best yet, which you are free to believe because opinions, but I don't. Usually at this point I give a spiel about streaming services and where to watch the subject of this review, but for The Boy and the Beast that is not currently feasible, unless you're willing to skirt the boundaries of the law, which I know isn't exactly a problem for most anime fans, but still bears mention. And that'll do it. Thanks for watching, have a great day, leave any feedback in the comments, subscribe if you want more, and if there's anything you'd like to see reviewed, by all means tell me. I'm also on Twitter if you are so inclined. See you next time.
たモンスターの目の奥に孤独と純粋さを見つけ捨てられた子猫みたいに
See you next time. See you next time. See you next time. See you next time. See you next time.